My name is Natalie Hayes. I'm 34 years old, and a few months ago, my fiancé tried to sell cheating to me as spiritual growth. I work as a senior systems analyst for a tech company downtown. Good salary, solid benefits, spreadsheets that actually balance. I own my condo, drive a reliable car that's paid off, and my retirement account doesn't make my dad break out in hives when he looks at it. On paper, my life is exactly what my parents wanted when they scrubbed factory grease off their hands every night. Do better than us, my dad always said. Not fancier, just steadier. For a while, I thought I'd nailed it. Stable job, own place, nice 2-bedroom condo in a decent neighborhood, nothing flashy but mine, and a fiancé everyone said was a catch. His name was Evan, 35, worked in marketing for a mid-size firm, good sense of humor, perfectly tousled hair that somehow never collapsed in the rain. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 8 months. If you'd looked at our social media 6 months ago, you'd have bet money we were headed for happily ever after. The proposal was textbook perfect. Evan took me to this rooftop restaurant I'd bookmarked on Instagram and pretended it was a random date night. I found out later he'd spent 2 weeks coordinating with the staff. We had the table on the edge, city lights layered behind him like someone photoshopped a skyline into our lives. He'd arranged for champagne to appear right after dessert, and when the glasses hit the table, a violinist, yes, really, started playing. He stood up, looked weirdly pale, then dropped to one knee. "Natalie Hayes," he said, voice shaking, "will you marry me and keep pretending my fantasy line graphs make sense?" I laughed and cried at the same time. Of course I said yes. He slid a ring on my finger that I knew cost him months of salary, because I'd been the one sending him screenshots of just ideas for half a year. 2 carats, platinum band, vintage inspired. It sparkled like it had its own Wi-Fi connection. We took pictures. So many pictures. 20-something Instagram stories before we even left the restaurant. My mom called me the moment she saw the first one. "My baby," she sobbed. "I finally get to buy a mother of the bride dress." Evan's parents were thrilled too. His dad started inviting me over to watch games and talk investments. His mom texted me recipes I never had time to cook. My parents loved him because he had a real job and never once asked to borrow money. Everything looked exactly like the generational dream. Engagement, condo, wedding date, adulthood unlocked. We booked the venue for April 15th, next spring, at this gorgeous place an hour outside the city. Gardens, gazebo, fairy lights curled through trees like a Pinterest board had exploded, and someone swept up the glitter. We put down a $5,000 deposit without blinking. I made spreadsheets for guest lists, compared photographer packages, and learned more than any human should know about tiered cakes. Evan made color-coded Pinterest boards. He was in his element, or at least that's what I thought. If you freeze-framed our lives right there, you'd never guess how rotten it would all turn out to be. The first wobble came in the form of a man named Reed. Evan met him at a networking event. Reed called himself a transformational coach and relational strategist, which is what people say when they don't want to admit they're unemployed. He was mid-30s, wore linen shirts in November, and talked like every sentence should be written in italics. At first, Evan just mentioned him in passing. Reed said something really interesting about career plateaus today. He told me one night while we ate takeout on the couch. I said, half listening, half thinking about a server migration at work. About how we accept scripts from society instead of writing our own. I think I've been on autopilot. I'd heard enough podcast jargon to recognize the genre. I smiled, nodded, and filed Reed under harmless people my fiancé would eventually get bored of. Spoiler, I was wrong. Over the next few weeks, Reed went from casual mention to recurring character. Reed thinks traditional careers are a trap. Reed says monogamy is usually fear in a formal dress. Reed talks about relationship anarchy and deconstructing the relationship escalator. I made the mistake of laughing at that one. Relationship escalator? I repeated. Do we have to press a button, or does it just carry us directly to divorce? Evan frowned a little. I'm serious, Nat. He's actually really insightful. He runs these workshops on authentic relating. I might go to one on Tuesday nights. Workshops, I echoed. Like, you sit in a circle and talk about your feelings while drinking herbal tea? Something like that, he said, already pulling up the event page on his phone. He started going every Tuesday. $50 a session, for what I assumed was the privilege of being told monogamy was a construct. Books started appearing on the coffee table. Titles like The Ethical Slut and More Than Two, all about open relationships and polyamory. Highlighter marks, sticky notes, little constellations of growth and authentic self scribbled in the margins. Even his vocabulary changed. Suddenly, everything was about doing the work, unpacking conditioning, and checking in with his body's yes. His social media shifted too. Less posts about our wedding planning, more shared articles about alternative relationship structures, and quotes about freedom and autonomy. At first, I brushed it off. People are allowed to read weird books. They're allowed to have spiritual phases. Evan and I were still planning the wedding, still arguing about whether to invite his cousin who always gets drunk and hits on bridesmaids. Then he started talking about Daria. Daria was a personal trainer at his gym. 28, insanely fit, according to the way he said it, like fitness was a moral quality. At first, it was nothing. Daria showed me a better way to do deadlifts today. Daria says mobility is the new strength. Daria thinks my form is great for someone who sits at a desk all day. Okay, great. I was happy he had a trainer who made him actually use the gym membership we were paying for. But then her name became Constant. Daria told me this hilarious story about a client who... Daria and I were talking about holistic wellness. Daria said most people are scared of their own desires. Her face started appearing in his Insta stories, sweaty post-workout selfies, side by side, their reflections overlapping in the mirror. Great session with Daria today, he'd caption. His friends would comment, "Bro, your trainer is hot. Is she single?" Evan would respond with laughing emojis and nothing else. I'm not by nature a jealous person. I work in tech. If I lost my mind every time a guy followed a hot woman online, I'd never stop screaming. But I'm also not stupid. When your fiancé starts constantly talking about his trainer while simultaneously going to workshops about ethical non-monogamy, the math is not complicated. Around that time, my best friend Kyle pulled me aside at lunch. "Hey, Nat, is everything okay with you and Evan?" I blinked. "Yeah, why?" He shrugged, poking at his fries. His Instagram's getting weird. A lot of stuff about open relationships, and this Reed guy, and that trainer, Daria. I rolled my eyes. He's just in some self-help phase. He'll get bored and move on to crypto or minimalism or something. Kyle gave me a look I didn't like. My cousin's husband went through this, started talking about polyamory and authentic connections right before he moved in with his yoga teacher. Just watch your back, okay? I laughed it off. We were engaged. We'd booked a venue. We had Excel sheets. People who plan weddings don't just decide to blow everything up because of a linen-shirted guru and a very flexible trainer. Except sometimes they do. 3 weeks before everything detonated, Evan told me he was going to one of Reed's intensive weekend retreats upstate. 2 nights in some cabin, lots of circles and embodied exercises, $500. I asked what exactly they'd be doing. He got defensive. "You judge it," he said. "You're still stuck in really traditional thinking." That stung. I'm a lot of things, but closed-minded isn't one of them. I swallowed it and let him go. He came back on Sunday night different. Taller somehow. Or maybe he just carried himself like he'd been knighted by a ring light. I had some huge realizations, he said, dropping his bag by the door, about my desires, about what I actually need. I felt a tiny cold stone settle in my stomach. What does that mean? He kissed my forehead. I'll explain when I'm ready. Apparently ready arrived on a Monday. I came home from work around 6:30. The lights were dim. The apartment smelled like herbal tea and something citrusy. Evan was sitting on the couch, very upright, 2 mugs of tea on the coffee table. He only made tea when he was sick or about to have a capital C conversation. "Hey," I said slowly, "what's going on?" He gestured to the couch. "Nat, can you sit? We need to talk about our relationship." There it was. Every atom in my body went quiet. The cold stone in my stomach, it dropped straight through the floor. I sat, picked up the mug just to have something in my hands. My reflection wobbled in the surface. "I've been doing a lot of personal work," he began, using that soft, therapist-approved tone people use right before they say something cruel. And I've realized that traditional monogamy doesn't align with who I am at my core. I stared at him. "I'm going to need you to use normal words, Evan. What does that mean?" He took a breath, eyes shining like he was about to propose again. "I want us to open our relationship." The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. Somewhere in the building, a dog barked. In our living room, everything went dead still. "I want us to open our relationship." The words didn't land all at once. They kind of floated there between us, like a balloon I hadn't agreed to hold. I blinked. "You want to what?" "I want us to be able to see other people. Evan said carefully, as if he were explaining taxes to a child. While still maintaining our primary partnership, of course. It's about freedom and authenticity, Nat. So, I said slowly, you want to sleep with other women? He flinched at the bluntness. It's not just about sex. It's about connections, experiences, growth. Experiences, I repeated. Growth. My voice sounded very calm. That scared me more than if I'd started screaming. He leaned forward, palms open. I've been suppressing my authentic self to fit into this box. We both have. Reed helped me see that I've been performing monogamy instead of choosing it consciously. Performing monogamy, I echoed, like a play. Yes, he said, relieved I'd picked up the term. Exactly. I want us both to have the freedom to explore connections with other people while still being each other's primary. No lies, no cheating, just radical honesty. I stared at him for a long moment. Evan, we are 8 months away from our wedding. The wedding is just a ceremony, he said gently. What matters is our commitment to each other's happiness and freedom. There's going to be a banner over the gazebo that literally says, "Till death do us part," I said. I don't remember the line about, but Tuesdays are for experimenting with Daria. His jaw tightened. This isn't about Daria. Oh? I tilted my head. Because lately it's been, Reed says this, and Daria thinks that, and monogamy is fear in a formal dress. Forgive me if I'm connecting some extremely obvious dots. He flushed. This is about me realizing I'm fundamentally non-monogamous. I laughed once, sharp. You were fundamentally monogamous enough to propose, fundamentally monogamous enough to spend 6 months picking linen napkins and tasting cake samples. When exactly did your fundamentals change? Before or after the sweaty mirror selfies with your trainer? He set his mug down a little too hard. People evolve, Natalie. I'm not the same person I was when I asked you to marry me. You're right, I said quietly. You're really not. For a moment, we just looked at each other. My heartbeat was so loud I could feel it in my teeth. So what is this exactly? I asked. A conversation or an ultimatum? His expression arranged itself into something earnest and wounded. I'm asking you to consider opening our relationship, to at least talk about it. We could set boundaries, rules. We could read the research together. Studies show consensual non-monogamy can actually strengthen relationships. You rehearsed that line, didn't you? I said. He hesitated. Reed and I talked through how I might bring it up, yes. Of course you did, I murmured. He leaned closer, eyes pleading. This could be amazing for us, Nat. Imagine not being constrained by jealousy. Just pure, authentic connection. You could see other people, too. There might be things you want to explore that I can't give you. Why should we limit each other? Let me get this straight, I said. You want me to be okay with you sleeping with other women? Connecting with, as sleeping with other women, I repeated. And in exchange, I get the privilege of, what? Going on dates while still paying half the venue bill? He exhaled, frustrated. You're being reductive. I'm being clear, I said. You're the one using a thesaurus to avoid the word cheating. It's not cheating if I'm honest about it, he snapped. That's the entire point of ethical non-monogamy. I stood up, carried my untouched tea to the sink, and poured it out. The sound of it hitting the drain was strangely satisfying. I took my time before turning back to him. No, I said. He blinked. What? My answer is no, I repeated. I don't want an open relationship. I want the relationship we agreed to when you proposed. The monogamous one where we're committed to each other. You remember that one? With the ring? You're not even willing to consider it? His voice rose. To have a conversation like an adult? I just did, I said. You asked. I answered. That's how conversations work. His expression hardened, something cold bleeding through the fake serenity Reed had taught him. Then I guess, he said slowly, we need to think about whether this relationship is right for both of us. There it was, the soft-spoken ultimatum. I sat back down, suddenly very, very calm. Let me help you think, I said. We're not right for each other. You want an open relationship? I don't. That's a fundamental incompatibility. So we're done. He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. Natalie, that's not what I'm not saying we have to break up. You gave me a choice, I said. Open relationship or reconsider everything. I'm choosing reconsider everything. Tears sprang into his eyes. You're just throwing away 4 years? Over this? You threw them away, I said quietly. I'm just refusing to pretend it's still the same relationship while you shop for side quests. He stood, pacing, running his hands through his hair. You're being so close-minded, he said. Reed warned me this might happen, that you'd try to control me through fear. I almost laughed. I'm not controlling you. You're free to do whatever you want with whoever you want. You just don't get to do it while engaged to me." He grabbed his phone, thumbs flying across the screen, probably texting Reed something like, "She's in scarcity mindset." "Fine," he said. "If this is how you want to handle it, fine. But don't come crying to me when you realize you blew up your life because you were afraid to grow." "I won't," I said, "but I will need something from you before you leave." He scoffed. "What, my blessing? My apology?" "The ring," I said. He froze. "What?" "The engagement ring," I repeated. I held up my hand so the diamond caught the light. "It's a conditional gift. No wedding, no ring. State law's pretty clear." His face twisted. "You can't be serious? You're really going to be that petty?" "It's not petty," I said. "It's a 4-month salary ring you gave me under the condition of marriage. That condition no longer exists. So yes, I want it back. You can use it to fund your spiritual journey or whatever." "I need time to process this," he said. "I'm not just going to hand it over while you're being irrational." I slipped the ring off, feeling the faint indent it had already made on my skin, and placed it on the coffee table between us. "I don't," I said. "Here, take it now, or I can get a lawyer involved later. Your call." He glared at me, then snatched the ring like it might burn him. "I hope you're happy," he spat. "I'm not," I said, "but I'm also not going to be someone's backup plan while they explore their authentic self with a personal trainer." He grabbed his keys and stormed out. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the framed save the date we still had pinned on the entryway table. I stood in the quiet apartment, staring at the empty space where the ring had been on my hand. I expected to feel heartbroken, devastated, crushed. Instead, what I felt was clear, like someone had finally turned the overhead lights on in a room I'd been stumbling through in the dark. That night, my phone became a grenade. First came the text from Evan. "You're overreacting. We could have worked through this. You're choosing fear over love. Reed says you're projecting." Then his friends. "Can't believe you're throwing away 4 years over one conversation. Evan was trying to be honest with you. This is why people lie." Then a number I didn't recognize, which turned out to be Reed himself. "Evan tells me you shut down his vulnerable truth. I hope you can sit with why his growth is so threatening for you." I screenshotted everything, then turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and slid it face down across the table. The next morning, I woke up at 6, made coffee, and opened the wedding planning folder. Every vendor contract, every deposit, neatly organized in plastic sleeves. I'd thought it was a map to our future. Now it was a spreadsheet of losses. I took a breath and started making calls. Florist, photographer, caterer, the dress shop, then finally the venue. "Good morning, Willow Glen Events," a cheerful voice answered. "This is Mara. How can I help you?" "Hi, Mara," I said, gripping the mug a little tighter. "This is Natalie Hayes. I need to cancel our April 15th booking." "Oh," she said softly. "I'm so sorry to hear that. Let me pull up your file. One moment." Keyboard clacking. The sound of my bank account weeping in the distance. "Okay, I see you here," she said. "Unfortunately, per the contract, your deposit is non-refundable. That's the $5,000 you paid. However, since you're canceling more than 6 months out, you won't owe the remaining balance." I'd already done the math. "I understand," I said. "That's fine." "Again, I'm really sorry," she said. "This might be a strange question, but is everything okay? I just spoke to your fiancé yesterday." My spine went cold. "Yesterday?" "Yes," she said. "Let me check the notes." More typing. "Yes, Evan Cooper called around 4:30 p.m. He asked about changing the date and inquired whether we could convert the booking into a smaller package. Something about a weekend retreat for a mixed group, maybe 12 guests. I stared at the wall. "I'm sorry, he called to what exactly?" She read from the screen. "He asked if the April booking could be restructured into what he called a freedom weekend, or transformational bachelor retreat. He wanted to know about date flexibility, whether we offered group accommodations, spa services, things like that. He said he'd call back with a new deposit once he confirmed numbers." My mouth went dry. "And this was yesterday?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Yes, yesterday at 4:42 p.m. He'd sat on this very couch 2 hours later and told me he'd just realized he was fundamentally non-monogamous." "Could you email me those notes?" I asked. "For my records?" "Of course," she said gently. "I'll send you a copy of everything we have logged." 10 minutes later, the email arrived. Right there in black and white. 4:42 p.m. Caller, Evan Cooper. Inquired about changing April 15th. Wedding booking into smaller freedom/bachelor retreat weekend package for approx. 10 to 12 guests. Mentioned potential new date in March. Said he would confirm after speaking to fiancé and group. My vision sharpened, like someone had adjusted the focus on my entire life. The open relationship talk hadn't been a vulnerable revelation. It had been logistics. He wasn't asking permission to explore. He was building a runway for something he'd already planned, a freedom weekend at our wedding venue. I forwarded the email to Kyle with no comment. 30 seconds later, my phone lit up with his name. I answered. He didn't even say hello. He called the venue before he broke up with you? Kyle demanded. For a bachelor freedom retreat? Yep, I said, staring at the screen. 2 hours before our big, authentic conversation. There was a low whistle through the line. Damn, Nat, that's not growth, that's premeditation. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Yeah, I said, and I have a feeling it's only the tip of the iceberg. Kyle's whistle trailed into silence, the kind that fills your ears like static. Nat, he said finally, I don't even know what to call that. It's like he tried to soft launch cheating. I stared at the venue email again. It feels worse than cheating. It's planning. You okay? I swallowed. I'm about to be. Because if Evan had gone this far, then there was more. And I wasn't going to sit quietly in the ashes of a burned engagement while he danced around calling it self-discovery. After we hung up, I opened our shared credit card account. The first bomb. The first suspicious charge was from 2 Thursdays ago. Riverside Prime, $86.94. 2 entrees, a cocktail, a dessert. Not the kind of bill one person racks up while staying home healing from emotional labor, as Evan had texted me that night. I clicked deeper. Another charge. Same restaurant. 3 weeks ago. Also on a night he claimed he had a migraine and went to bed early. My pulse quickened. Then I saw it. Marriott downtown, 241-18, same night as the steakhouse. I stared until the numbers blurred. He'd sat across from me the next morning at breakfast, telling me about a dream he'd had. Called me baby, kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted almond milk in my coffee. And he'd done all that after spending the night at a hotel with who? My stomach tightened like a fist. I kept scrolling. More steakhouse charges, once a week for a month, all on nights he'd been at Reed's workshops. Workshops, right. I was still staring at the screen when my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost declined it, but something in me was too tired to care. Hello? A voice cleared its throat. Hi, is this Natalie? My name's Daria. I'm Evan's trainer at Peak Performance. My spine straightened. Oh? I said carefully. What can I do for you? Look, I'm sorry if this is out of line, she said, sounding uncomfortable. But I found something weird, and I don't like being dragged into drama. My brain produced a single clear thought. Of course. Of course it's worse. What's going on? I asked. She exhaled. Evan told me you two were in an open relationship. I shut my eyes. There it was. The first confirmed lie. He said, she continued, that you were totally cool with him, exploring, and that you'd already talked about boundaries. My jaw clenched. He told you that? Yes. And look, I shut him down. Multiple times. I don't date clients, and even if I did, I wouldn't touch someone in a committed relationship, but he kept bringing it up. Said you were aligned with the concept. Something about a primary partnership. I let out a breath that felt like a knife sliding between ribs. Thank you, I said. I really appreciate you calling. Yeah, I just didn't want to get blindsided, and for what it's worth, you deserve better. She hung up, and the silence in my condo felt cavernous. The knock at the door. That night, around 8, there was a knock. Evan. I didn't even ask why he was there. He walked in like he still lived here, looked around like the apartment had betrayed him by staying exactly the same. Nat, he began. I've been thinking. Maybe we were both too hasty. Hasty? My voice was almost gentle. Almost. That's an interesting word for everything you've been doing. He ran a hand through his hair. I don't want to lose you. Maybe we don't have to fully open the relationship. Maybe we can start slow. Just explore things together. Negotiate. I'm willing to compromise if you... Sit down, Evan. He blinked. What? Sit. My tone left no room for interpretation. He sat. I picked up my tablet and slid it across the coffee table to him. The credit card statement filled the screen. Riverside Prime, I said. 4 times. Marriott Hotel. Once that I know of. Care to explain? His skin turned the color of old chalk. Nat, it's not what you think. Really? I tilted my head, because it seems pretty self-explanatory. He swallowed hard. Okay, yes. I wasn't fully honest with you, but it wasn't Daria. Oh, I know it wasn't Daria, I said. She called me. He paled. What? She told me all about your open relationship. You really should work on your storytelling. People usually lie better than you do. His jaw tightened. Daria shouldn't have. That's between us. No, I said quietly. Cheating is between us. Daria didn't cheat on me. You did. He stood. I didn't cheat. Nat, I was going to talk to you about everything. That's why I brought up opening the relationship. You mean you wanted permission, I said. Permission to continue what you'd already started. He looked down, voice dropping to a whisper. Her name is Jasmine. Of course it was. And who is Jasmine? I asked, even though I already knew. He didn't answer. Let me guess, I said. Reed's partner. His head snapped up, eyes wide. Nat, it's not... Oh, Evan, I said softly. You cheated on me with your guru's partner. That's not polyamory. That's a cult MLM with extra steps. He winced. It wasn't like that. Reed encouraged it, okay? He said Jasmine and I had chemistry, and that it'd help me discover. Your authentic self, I supplied. Your truth, your inner compass. Which script did he give you for this part? His eyes flashed. You're being cruel. No, I said. I'm being accurate. He sat down again, rubbing his forehead. I didn't want to hurt you, he whispered. I just needed to know if this was what I really wanted before we got married. And instead of honesty, I said, you chose rehearsal. You rehearsed new love, new sex, new commitments, all while planning a freedom retreat at our wedding venue. He shut his eyes. I let the silence stretch before I delivered the final blow. You didn't come to me with a revelation, I said. You came to me with a script after the curtain had already gone up on someone else. He flinched like I'd hit him. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he whispered, Can we please go to counseling? Can we talk to someone? I don't want to lose you. You already did, I said. His face crumpled. You can pick up the rest of your things tomorrow, I added. I'll leave the spare key on the counter. And Evan? He looked up, hopeful. Don't bring Reed. He left without another word. The fallout. The next morning, Evan's mother called me. I expected tears. I got fire. Natalie, what have you done? She snapped. Evan is devastated. You're ending an engagement over a simple disagreement about boundaries? A disagreement, I repeated. He cheated, Linda. She scoffed. He made one mistake. One mistake, I said. Which one? The affair? The hotel? The secret dinners? The planned freedom retreat? Her silence told me everything. You're being unreasonable, she said finally. Young men explore. It's normal. You should be supportive, not judgmental. I laughed, because the only other option was screaming. He wasn't exploring. He was excavating, and I am not a museum dig site. She hung up on me. An hour later, Evan's father called. His voice was quiet, heavy. I'm sorry, Natalie, he said. This isn't how we raised him. Reed. He got his hooks in deep. You didn't deserve any of this. I blinked. Thank you. If you ever need anything, your deposits, help, whatever, let me know. I appreciate that, I whispered. When I ended the call, I sat at my dining table surrounded by wedding contracts, cancellation emails, and a bare ring finger. And for the first time since all this began, I wasn't scared. I was free. Evan came back the next afternoon to pick up the rest of his things. I made sure I wasn't home. I left his belongings neatly stacked by the entryway, the spare key resting on top like punctuation to a sentence I never wanted to read again. When I returned that evening, the hallway was empty. He'd taken everything, including the framed engagement photo from our Disney trip, the one where I was laughing so hard my eyes disappeared. He even took the photo frame. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but the only thing I felt was a strange, hollow quiet, like standing in the eye of a storm that had already passed. Then came the second storm, the group chat aftershock. My phone buzzed. Group chat. Evan plus friends, the ones who think retreats are personality traits. Simone. You really blindsided Evan. Jennifer. This is so unlike you, Nat. Evan. Please don't gang up on her. This is between us. Simone. She humiliated you over one honest conversation? Jennifer. It's giving control issues. Unknown number. Growth triggers people stuck in scarcity consciousness. Ah, Reed. I left the chat. Seconds later, text came directly to me. Evan, please don't block my friends. They're just trying to help. Evan, we can still fix this. Evan, I don't want to lose you. Then another. Evan, can we talk tonight? I miss you. I stared at the screen. It had been less than 48 hours since he'd told me he was fundamentally non-monogamous. Now he was fundamentally lonely. I didn't respond. What comes after the storm? The next week was a blur of logistics. Every vendor repeated the same polite practice line. We're so sorry, but the deposit is non-refundable. Florist, non-refundable. Photographer, non-refundable. Caterer, non-refundable and no credit transferable. By day 3, I started telling them, it's fine. Think of it as tuition. I was learning a very expensive life lesson, but the venue email, the one proving Evan had planned a freedom retreat at our wedding venue, was the anchor keeping me steady. There was no version of reality where I regretted walking away. The quiet before the twist. It was Thursday night when the twist arrived. I'd just finished dinner when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hey, this is Jasmine. My stomach tightened. Jasmine, Reed's partner. The woman Evan had cheated with. I didn't reply right away. After a minute, another text came. Jasmine, I think you should know something. I debated ignoring her, then curiosity won. Me, what is it? 3 dots. Typing, stopping, typing again. Finally, Jasmine, I didn't know he was engaged. Jasmine, he said you two were transitioning out of monogamy and consciously uncoupling. Jasmine, Reed believed him. I did too. I felt my pulse in my teeth. Me, and you found out how? Jasmine, he told Reed yesterday that he was planning a bachelor retreat with the group. Reed assumed you two had agreed. Jasmine, but then Evan mentioned the venue name. Jasmine, Reed recognized it. Jasmine, he realized it was your wedding venue. I pressed a hand to my forehead. Of course, of course. Evan had been sloppy enough to reveal the location. Jasmine, Reed confronted him. Evan admitted the timeline. Jasmine, I ended things immediately. Something inside me unwound. Not satisfaction, but confirmation. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't overreacted. The truth, once again, was worse than what I'd imagined. Me, thank you for telling me. Jasmine, I'm sorry, Natalie. Truly. You didn't deserve this. And then, unexpectedly, Jasmine, for what it's worth, he talked about you constantly, even when he shouldn't have. I stared at the message. I didn't know what to do with that information, so I put it away like a book I wasn't ready to finish. Evan returns. The next day, Evan showed up again. I didn't buzz him in. He waited outside until a neighbor entered the building, then intercepted them. When I opened my door, he was standing there, apologetic expression preloaded like a pre-written speech. Nat, can we talk? No, I said, but you're going to anyway. He swallowed. I messed up, I know that, but I panicked. I was confused. I didn't mean for Jasmine. It wasn't just Jasmine, I said. It was the lies, the manipulation, the workshop jargon, the hotel, the retreat planning, Daria. He flinched. I never touched Daria. She knows, I said. She called me. His face twisted, not in guilt, annoyance. You had no right to... Stop, I said sharply. He did. I stepped forward just enough to make him blink. You are not the wounded party here, I said. You are not the enlightened one. You are not the victim of my limitations. You cheated, you lied, you planned your future like I was an anchor instead of a partner. He opened his mouth to argue. I didn't let him. You don't need a fiancé, I said. You need a mirror, and maybe a therapist who doesn't own incense in bulk. He stared at me, eyes shining with something like panic. Please, can we try counseling? I'll stop the workshops. I'll block Reed. I'll do anything. You already had my commitment, I said softly. You threw it away for a philosophy you barely understood and a woman you barely knew. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. The message was clear. He lowered his arm slowly, like it weighed too much to hold. Goodbye, Evan, I said. The door closed with a soft click, and when the sound faded, I felt an unshakable truth settle into my bones. This wasn't a heartbreak. It was a release. I spent the next day planning a future where his name wasn't on any of my documents, and it felt like breathing for the first time in months. For the first time in weeks, the apartment felt peaceful. No incense, no lectures about fear-based monogamy, no sudden, performative journal entries left open on the counter. Just quiet, a good quiet, rebuilding from the wreckage. I dove into work as if it were oxygen. My manager pulled me aside 2 weeks later. You've been on fire lately, she said. Ever thought about leading a team? I blinked. Me? She laughed. Yes, you. Not an imaginary version of you. The real, extremely competent, extremely focused you. I got promoted to lead systems analyst that afternoon. That night, I bought myself sushi and a bottle of sake and toasted to the version of me who finally chose herself, filling the empty space. I picked up rock climbing, mostly because I needed something that forced me not to think about Evan or deposits or workshops run by men who said alignment too often. It turns out climbing is excellent therapy. Every route is a puzzle. Every movement forces you into the present moment, and nobody on the wall tries to tell you that jealousy is a capitalistic construct. That's where I met Logan. He was standing 2 lanes over, struggling with a V4 route I'd just finished. He glanced over, embarrassed. "You made that look easy," he said. "I'm tall," I shrugged. "Gravity owes me a few favors." He laughed, then asked if I could show him the foot placement. 15 minutes later, we were talking about structural engineering, tendon injuries, and the best Vietnamese food in the city. He wasn't flashy. He didn't talk like a podcast. He didn't use phrases like core desire matrix. He was normal, refreshing, human. After our second climbing session, he asked for my number. On our first date, he held the door open and didn't explain to me why that was actually a symbolic rejection of oppressive gender norms. God bless him. The truth always circulates. Meanwhile, Evan and his guru circle didn't go quietly. 3 weeks after the breakup, Kyle sent me a screenshot. It was a long, emotional post Evan had made on social media, a masterpiece of self-pity. "I lost the love of my life because she couldn't accept my growth. Traditional relationships suffocate my spirit. I'm finally free to live my truth." Below that, Reed commented, "Proud of you for choosing authenticity over fear, brother." I had to hand it to them. Delusion can be a very powerful bonding activity. But the internet remembers. Mutual friends chimed in. Travis, "Authenticity. Bro, you cheated and got caught. Don't make it deep." Sierra, "Opening a relationship. Planning a bachelor retreat at your wedding venue." Michelle, "Natalie deserves a medal for leaving when she did." Reed tried to defend him, but his comments were ratioed into oblivion. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. The truth was self-sustaining. Healing forward, not backward. Logan and I took things slow. He asked on our third date, "So, what happened with your last relationship? Only if you want to tell me." I told him every detail, not exaggerating, not minimizing. Just truth. When I finished, he set his coffee down and said, "I'm really sorry you went through that, but I'm glad you walked away. A lot of people don't." His voice didn't change. His face didn't twist into judgment or pity. He didn't try to diagnose Evan or fix me. He just listened. That alone felt like a miracle. 6 months later, Logan and I moved in together. No ultimatums, no incense, no workshop jargon. Just 2 adults choosing each other because we wanted to, not because a guru told us it was spiritually optimized. We split bills 50-50. We meal prepped together. We argued about rational things like whose turn it was to buy toilet paper, not about whether withholding affection was a tool of capitalist intimacy structures. And for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Then came the grocery store. It was a normal Saturday. I was standing in the frozen aisle debating between 2 brands of dumplings when I heard a voice behind me. "Natalie?" I turned. Evan stood there, thinner, tired, dark circles under his eyes. And beside him, Reed, still wearing linen, still smelling faintly of sandalwood and unsolicited advice. Evan swallowed hard. "Hey." "Hi," I said. Reed gave me a tight smile, like he wanted to say something about consciousness, but couldn't find the right angle. Silence. Heavy. Awkward. "So, how are you?" Evan asked. "Good," I said. "Really good." He nodded, staring at the floor. I'm sorry. For everything." I believed him. Not enough to forget, but enough to acknowledge. "Thank you," I said softly. He hesitated. "Are you seeing someone?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. "His name's Logan." Something flickered across Evan's face. Regret, or jealousy, or the moment he realized how far he'd fallen out of my life. "That's good," he said quietly. "I'm happy for you." I nodded once, then reached into the freezer and grabbed my dumplings. "Well," I said, "take care, Evan. You too, Reed." Reed opened his mouth, probably to say something about alignment, but I was already turning away. I didn't look back. What closure really feels like. In the checkout line, I texted Logan. "Me. Just bumped into my ex." He apologized. "Logan, how do you feel?" "Me. Nothing. Just glad that's not my life anymore." "Logan. Good. Come home. I'm making dinner." Home. That word no longer felt fragile. It felt earned. The final twist. Months later, Logan proposed. Simple. Sincere. No violinist. No rooftop restaurant. No scripted Instagram storyline. Just us on a hiking trail at sunset. When he opened the ring box, I realized something. The best decision I ever made wasn't accepting a proposal. It was walking away from the wrong one. The moral? When someone gives you an ultimatum they expect you to crumble under, don't. When someone tries to disguise betrayal as growth, leave. And when someone shows you who they are long before they say it, believe them. That $5,000 venue deposit? The cancellation